Good morning, guys. I'm Carl from Oshkosh, Carl Hubble from Oshkosh Corporation, doing field service activities. We'll come out and do vehicle deliveries, in-service inspections, warranty repairs, that type of deal. So we're kind of a full-service shop. The unique and wonderful opportunity we have here, though, is right across the street is Hughes Fire Equipment. And Sonny Ovens and a bunch over there have definitely gotten involved with the Global Striker, and they're very interested in this delivery. I think they'll be here maybe Thursday. I'm going to run them and then your vehicle maintenance through the vehicle for their side of the house. And so you've got a unique, they're right across the street. I mean, it's not call the call center and wait for somebody to come out or whatever. I mean, it's right there. So it's pretty neat. And I've been in contact with Sonny and gave him a couple of things to get started with. So it's really unique. What our goal is today is I want to give you as many deliverables as I can. And the first thing we'll do is we're going to start with a website that's online that as a guest, operators as a guest can go right to the operator manuals. Vehicle maintenance can go to the same site, but they'll go into the parts and schematics and different things. So I want you guys to all see this access. Yes, this allows us to have 3 copies of the operator's manual. You'll have a paper copy, you'll have a disc, and then this online or live copy or whatever. And of course, it's accessible pad, phone, whatever it is. So, and once we go through this, then we've got a short PowerPoint, about 30 pages, kind of a virtual walk around, if you will. So we'll go through that and you'll get your first eye. If you haven't had a chance to look at the truck, you'll get a first eye of how the compartments are laid out. And then we'll do the same thing, go do the actual walk around and then do some pumping and rolling and things like that. And we'll be off to the races. So I will try to relate this as much as I can to the T-Series and also to your Legacy Striker. Going off the old trend that let's find that common core and work forward, that you know a lot of that truck. Believe it or not, you know a lot of that Global Striker already. And I want to work from that you know to now, and it's just going to keep it, I'm not going to say simple, I'm going to say very efficient use of your knowledge. And we won't go through, this is a centrifugal pump, and we don't need to do that at all. So on this particular page, again, it's called airportproductsupport.com, airportproductsupport.com, all one word. And for operators, you simply just click this login as guest. It's going to load this front page here and a couple of really cool things here. So one, we'll go back up here in a minute to, if we click on that for the manuals. But what I'd like for you to see is in this reading here, yes, when I leave, you'll have my contact information. Joe already does, but we'll have that contact information. In the unlikely event that I can't answer the phone or don't answer the phone or won't answer the phone, which that will never happen. But you have this 800 number, 800-222-6635. That is the call center. That's probably the call center you may already know about from your Pierce side of the house, because there is a union, I think I can use that word, a joining of Pierce and Oshkosh. It absolutely is. And if you look at this, say, man, that's a lot like the Pierce Parts website. Yeah, well, it absolutely is, because they took ours and blended it with theirs, and this is what we have. So you'll see very, very similar items. I mean, you'll see it all over. So that's the number. You would give them the last 6 digits of your VIN, which is 792500. The last 6 digits of the VIN number on your truck. Then they pull it up and boom, they say, okay, how can I help you? And you'd be able to say, well, this switch doesn't work or that doesn't work. How does this operate? The guy never covered this, whatever it happens to be. If they may ask you to, well, I'm not familiar with that. Could you please take a picture? And then you would just send it to this customer support website. So it gives you a good connection right back to the call center. So those are good. That's good numbers or good information to carry, and then also the opportunity to send a picture. For the bulletins and manuals, we go to that top left up here. We'll click on that, and of course it gives us our operator manual. We'll go to the plus sign, and then it's going to give us Global, Legacy, TTI series. So it will take you all the way back. I mean, I'm going to give the same brief to the snow operators because they're CE or whoever happens to be the operations. They'll have or they'll have access to all these for the snow side of the house also. So, but that's a good gig, and we go over here, then we'll open up the Global Striker for now. And it's the whole book, and we'll go here, and we'll go here, and then we'll go here. The nice thing about this particular opportunity is you'll always get the most updated version. So this is September of 16 was the last reprint. Now they may have changed the cover. I don't know what they changed. We don't necessarily do the TODO routine where we send out change modules and things like that. No. But this, if you do use this one, if there are any changes or anything updated, it'll always be the most current copy. So again, this, you should have the same, should be popping up on your iPad. I don't know if that's what you're doing, but that's great. But you'll have this on any of your electronic information you want. What's nice about this one too, guys, is all of the links work. Meaning that you'll be in the operation side, it'll say check or something about checking the engine oil, and it will give you the link that goes back to the engine page. You know, click on that, it will take you right back to that page. Or if you're on the pump panel, whatever you're working on, if there's a link, it will take you right to that page. So it is very, very intuitive, I guess is the right word to use here. So anyway, if all this with the end right now and I get recalled, you've got everything you need right there. You know, you could go right through it with your experiences, and with this book, there'd be no problem there. You guys, I don't foresee that happening, but if it was to happen, we've got that under wraps. Again, I've done the first thing I wanted to, that was show you operator's manual. If I have an opportunity to do one other thing, I'm going to show you the chassis of your truck. Now, if you look at that, what does that look like? Honestly, what is that? I mean, yeah, it's a line drawing, and it's like, I have no idea what you're trying to get me to say. But when you look at that, think of the other two trucks that are already out there. You could put any of your chassis in that same picture, and it would match identically. So you're like, wait a minute, you're talking 1980 something, and now you're talking 2020 something, and you're saying they're identical. Yeah, except for the operating systems. The big difference is the operating systems. We're still going to have a transmission. We're still going to have a power divider. We're still going to have an engine. We're still going to have a transfer case. We're still going to have axles. It's just how we control it. And then there's, you know, obviously there's been some changes, different speeds of the transmission things. But for the most, yeah, we could put any of those three chassis right here, right now. What's interesting as I speak to that, what I need to get down in the next subframe, if you will, this is exactly like your T-Series. The difference with the Legacy is it used the twin disc drive line. So the engine went into a power divider, but yet this transmission and transaxle, they're combined. I'm sorry, did I say transaxle? I meant to say transfer case. The transmission and transfer case on the Legacy are the same component. If you lay underneath the truck, it'll go engine, power divider, then one long drive shaft, and then one big suitcase about that tall in the middle of the truck. And that's going to not only shift your speeds of the transmission, but it also drops and redirects your driveline torque. So there's a bit of a difference in the Legacy, or in the Legacy, it uses the twin disc driveline, but again, overall, it's going to be the same output. So now for our engine, we use a Scania motor. It is a DEF, it's a Tier 4F, meaning it does have DEF fluid, diesel exhaust fluid. So we have that level, and there's a gauge in the cab. We use the Oshkosh power divider. You had an Oshkosh power divider in your T-Series. That main clutch that connects the engine to the transmission on the old truck was springs and air. Kind of rough. Kind of harsh, but in that day, it was great. It was cool stuff, but that was what we used. Today, this guy is controlled by electronics and hydraulics. All that says is smooth, and we'll see that today when we do our pump and roll operations. The Allison transmission now is a fully electronic. It's a 4800 EVS, I believe, is the nomenclature for it. So, but still inline clutches like Allison's always have been. Very smooth, very good operation, but it is a 7-speed transmission, where that guy's probably the 5-speed, 4 or 5-speed. But anyway, it's and it was a mechanical type. It was still automatic transmission, but we didn't have any computer controls on it. Here we have a work mode and some different items. Then we go into a transfer case, drops, redirects the torque, then we go out to our axles. You'll notice the new truck will have a different way to lock up the truck. As far as on the old Oshkosh trucks, we flipped one switch, we would lock the transfer case, lock the axles, we'd have 100%. On the new truck, we can select transfer case, and then we can also select axles. So depending how stuck I am, and you have to be really careful, I hate to say that, but then depending on how stuck I am, that will determine, do I need just to connect front and rear, or do I need to connect front and rear and side to side? Well, I've got the switch. We'll look at that just a little bit in our virtual walk around. Part of the uniqueness of the power divider is that we always will have a gear train operating when the engine's going. Regardless what this clutch is doing with the transmission, regardless, I always have a drive line or a gear train working anytime the engine's running. I put hydraulic pumps on there so that I always have hydraulic fluid flow. So when I start the truck, the gears start to move through the pressure plate of this clutch mechanism, and I have a power divider hydraulic pump that then begins to operate, produces fluid flow, allowing me to apply the hydraulic clutch in the power divider, but it also gives me hydraulics for my water pump clutch. And when I go into pump drive, I simply apply that clutch. This gear train's always going. I lock the pump to the gear train, then I drive the water pump through a chain drive. On your T-Series truck, that was an air snap over center clutch. Remember the old days, you said flip it over, and you hear it snap in, snap out. So now we just use hydraulics. So it's a lot smoother operation. We're allowed to engage this at 1,500 RPM now versus 1,000, which was the OTI rules of engagement, if you will.
Is it fair to call the power divider just a gearbox that's constantly turning and has ports off of it to send power to other places?
Sure, yeah, that would work. Absolutely, absolutely.
Just sounds the terminology power divider is sort of new to me.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to put it in my mind.
And if you're an over-the-road truck driver, you'll hear me call that a power divider, and you will call my bluff. You'll say, nope, power divider is what we call an interaxial differential that allows power to go through one differential to the back. So if we had a 3000, we would have a drive-through differential that would allow that rear axle to get torque. Well, on an over-the-road tractor, that's called the drive-through. Or I'm sorry, that's called the power divider. So oftentimes I'll get operators that have some over-the-road truck driving experience, and I say power divider, and they're like, no. So we got to kind of redefine, but no. Think about that power divider. The one thing I would ask you to think about is the clutch. It needs to be started. The engine needs to be started for the gears to be turning, for the pump to be pumping, for that clutch to be applied. You get in a clutch today, or you get in your global today. When you start the truck, what I want you to do is count to 1, and before you can get to 2, you'll feel a little bit of a shudder in the truck. What that shudder is this clutch applying, because it takes about that 1 second for the pump to start to do its thing, get the pressure build up so that it goes through the system and applies that clutch. It's normally, the solenoid for that's normally open, so as soon as you start the truck, you can't get to 2 and you'll feel that shudder. Now, if any of you ever worked P4 fire trucks, maybe in the military, or M1500, you ever familiar with that? This won't mean anything then, but I'll go through it anyhow. There was a solenoid, an air solenoid, that would activate as soon as you turn the ignition switch on, because it was controlled by the neutral safety switch. You just knew that happened. But what was interesting is when you turn the ignition on, if the truck had air, you'd always hear a little bit of a psh. You'd hear that solenoid operate. What was interesting, you turn on the ignition switch when you didn't hear it. Your mind was like, I don't know what's going on, but it ain't right. And it would, you just get used to that. So one day you're going to start the truck many years from now, many years from now. You're going to start the truck and you're not going to feel that shudder. And you're going to be like, it ain't going in gear. And you hit the gear and it'll sit there and flash. That will be your power divider. Probably your next thing, you look up and your power divider light's on. And that tells you right now that this pump ain't doing its thing. For some reason, it didn't produce the fluid flow. So, yes, call this as you will. Just remember that clutch is not going to be all the time. Which, if we can go backwards for a minute, on the T-Series, it's spring applied. So it's always on. Then when I go into pump mode on your T-Series, then air releases through that air chamber. Probably have heard them talk about the modulating clutch air chamber. That chamber extends, releases the clutch. We'll talk about how this one does that in a minute, but the T-Series is spring applied. It's always working. This one is hydraulically applied, so the engine has to be running for this pump to work to get it to apply. And guys, if they say, okay, you can have one thing you can print on this new truck, that'd be what I'd print. Because everything on the truck that we're concerned with, which is operations, except for the turrets, which we'll go through them in about that fast, you could make your truck work with that schematic right there. Engine, power divider, transmission, and then your pump drive. You're going to see very quickly why I'm an instructor and not a producer. So, like this may not have been, maybe a picture without I thought I put this together last night and this morning. I thought, okay, maybe I should have took pictures with the compartments closed. But anyway, it's your truck. So that's the story I was talking to Joe last night. What we realized, we've been putting this truck in service for about 8 years. Well, initially we start with this huge 100-page PowerPoint, grandiose, whatever. So it's wonderful. And we got to realizing that's the loaded sales truck. We have customers that don't do loaded sales trucks. They get what's needed and we're done. Well, about halfway through those presentations, I get a group like you. You're like, dude, you need to go. You've told me nothing relevant to my truck now, and I'm tired of hearing whatever the people have. So we learned real quick that we need to be getting in, showing the people what they have. So this is what we get from last night. So because actually we had the raid going, but anyway, it worked out really well, and it looked good. I was going through it this morning, wrapping it up this morning, and I think we did something good. But it's your PowerPoint. It's going to be open. You can do whatever you need to do with it, guys. Take different pictures and however you want to. But again, we're just going to go. This is our quick visual walk around your truck. We'll come down here, and everything has an objective, absolutely. The biggest thing I'm going to show you here is I just want you to be safe. I'm going to tell you what the truck's going to do. I'm going to tell you what the truck shouldn't do, and your SOP will be somewhere in between there. But always looking at safety as the prime operations. We've kind of looked at this. This is what you have. You have your 3 different copies of your operator manual, paper copy, which is in the box, electronic copy, which is in the box, and then your online version, airportproductsupport.com. All that worked out good today too, Joe. Helpful assistant has hooked me right up. So we are golden. We have been rolling. I got here about 3 minutes till, so everything, we've crossed every wicket when we should, so we're in good shape. Safety, we'll look at the different labels and tags. Again, just anything related with safety. But, getting into and out of the truck, whenever we talk about the 3 points of contact, it's something you guys work all the time. Don't walk frontwards out of the cab. But what I want to kind of look at, the 2 things I really want to point out for the ladder, whenever we drop this ladder down, just be very, very careful with this area right here. Don't put your hands there to catch the ladder when it comes down, because that's a pinch point. Yeah, so we need to be conscious of that pinch point. And also for your steps, when you look at those, you're like, okay, that's pretty cool. Now I'm going to tell you that they fold up. And so when you hear stairs and fold up in the same sentence, it's like, that doesn't sound right. Well, why we call it fold up is because it is in your 30-degree approach angle. So those steps have to go somewhere. And so they fold, and then they just spring back out again. So they're very sturdy, they're very safe. It's just they will fold to give you that 30 degree of of attack, if you will. Your approach angle. Once we get up inside, when we get up inside the cab, you'll notice we have seating for four, and then SCBA seats. Driver is not an SCBA seat, so that to the side is the SCBA bottle, and I believe Joe's already talked about, hey guys are talking about maybe rearranging how that configuration is so that you can have your locker inside. What's really cool about that, the mounting in the cab is that all of these seats have a 4-bolt program. I think they're called maybe a seat buck. Don't quote me on that, but every one of them has a lock nut in the framing, so that they're all safety, and all of them match. So whatever you take out, just use that same bolt pattern. You know, because you can rearrange everything you want. Everything in here has the same bolt pattern for the seating, if you will. You can kind of rearrange what you have. And so we get into some of the operations of it. When we look at the cab, this is not yours. This is just the lead page, if you will, for the cab configuration. When we talked a little bit about the snow equipment, that's where the idea of this came. You had the Legacy Striker, which is the first one we had this. They had the cab configuration laid out, and one of the engineers for the Legacy said, hey, hold on a second. He took a CAD drawing of a snowplow, brought it over, and dropped it right in the middle of the cab for the Legacy Striker and said, make it so. And that's what we have today. So that whole layout is the idea of the snow operator, where he's got all of his gauges, and then, I mean, you've got the big center console where an operator just has the arm that has his joystick for his blower, blade, or whatever it happens to be, broom. So that's where that idea came from, is they took the S series or the snow stuff and put it right in the middle, and there you have your cockpit or cocoon or whatever term you want to use. So your dash looks like this. What you'll see is, we'll talk about this as you're in the cab, the left side will give you all your controls for the chassis. The center is going to be your feedback of the gauge package, air, fuel, def, oil, different things. And then on the right's how we pump it. But when you look, this is pretty much the whole truck. I guess kind of starting at the top to the bottom, if you will. No, let's look at it the way we would use it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn the rotary ignition switch on. So change one. Instead of a master ignition start switch, I now just have a rotary ignition switch. One click is on, 2 clicks is start, release, it comes back to on, and away I go. This will get the engine running. Once I get it running, what's outside, I can work my HVAC system, defrost, heat, whatever it happens to be. If it's cold outside, or if I'm outside and it has been cold sitting, I have the opportunity in this position to turn on heated mirrors, or turn on a booster heater or a winterization system. Windshield wipers are going to be here on the turn signal switch or stalk switch, however you want to talk about it. And then if I have a fire, if I'm going to a scene, I have a master controlled emergency warning system for my lighting. So I can select what lights I want, hit the master switch, and away I go. Whether top warning, side warning, wig wag, and then I have my amber if I'm just rolling out for a normal runway check. Once I get the truck ready, I release the parking brake. I can put the transmission in gear, whether probably drive, pulling out of the station, and away I go. Allison transmission, fully automatic. Once I go to drive, it's going to say 7.2. It's a 7-speed transmission starting off in second gear, and away I go. If we get to our situation, we're going to do differential locks. Here's that rotary switch that controls transfer case only or all differentials right here. And depending on who drove last, the seat position, I can adjust it. Then I'll probably need to readjust my mirrors. So I have the controls here for left and right upper glass, and then left and right lower glass. This is interior lighting, dome lights. We'll look at that, and then we have remote located horn and siren controls. And yes, if you're looking at this stalk switch saying, hey, it looks like a horn button, it is. You have like 4 ways to honk the horn. The horn button in the steering column, the horn button on the stalk switch, and then the horn buttons at the remote locations, front, left and right operators. And then headlights. Good, thank you for bringing that up. The headlights are not on the ignition switch. So notice they are their own control. So we'll need to turn them on and turn them off every time we get into or out of the truck. Marker lights, and then, so this is like a FMVSS, Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard light switch like you have in your car. 1 click for marker lights, and 2 clicks gives you all your lighting system. So that's how that works. Okay. In the middle, once we start the truck, our gauges are going to tell us what's going on. We've got that warning light program which we can look at. If you go to the operator manual, does that, there's 12 pages associated with this. There you can learn about all the different icons. It has a drop-down box that shows you all of the icons that you have. We do use an LG alert. So it's the same setup as you had on your Legacy. It's just a little bit of a different design. We still include the good old-fashioned inclinometer, just for old school purposes, but we do have the LG alert. Tachometer, speedometer, fuel. This one here is that DEF fluid level we talked about, diesel exhaust fluid. This LCD display is a little bit different between the Legacy and the Global, but pretty much the same. I think what you can't do, you could do a speed test on the Legacy, and this one doesn't have that option to do your speed test, but everything else is there. You can go in, if you were writing lesson plans and wanted particulars, well, you'll notice on the gauge package, then a number on the gauges. It's green is go and red is stop. But if you go into this display, you can read all of the analog inputs for your gauges. So if you want to see what your oil pressure is at idle for a reference today, then you just write it down and you can compare, that type of thing. So you've got that opportunity to find all of that data inside this screen. So just another view of the turn signal switch, if you will. The way the wipers work is you rotate them. So we have intermittent and then low and high. And then also for windshield wash, you would simply grab the stalk and push it towards the steering column. And that's how you turn your windshield washers on. And a little bit more about each of the gauges. So on the right side, now I use this picture. It's the same as your truck, so it works. But the one I took yesterday didn't have the picture, and I thought, or they weren't on. I just wanted a vision to show you what's going on. So when we're on the right side, this is all about what makes it the fire truck. We have our pump and gauge switches. I've got this one here. This is called the windshield deluge. Different than windshield wash, windshield deluge. And then we've got cross-lay controls, AC voltage from a generator, and then DC lights. We'll talk about all of that here. Indicator lights, compartment door open, lights raised, foam engaged, water pump engaged. FLIR display, as soon as you turn on the ignition switch, your FLIR camera will work. It is attached to the roof turret, so that's how you're going to drive your FLIR cameras with your roof turret joystick. And that's what you have. It's on all the time, and it's just driven with the roof turret. This here is going to give us our foam level, water level, dry chem pressure, and if the vessel is pressurized, we'll talk a little bit about that. This virtual horizon is for your roof turret operation, because the roof turret, I can't see it. It's behind me. So as I'm in the truck, once I turn on the roof turret, I have to believe which way it's pointed. And this is telling me. So this one here would be, I think this one would be down and straight ahead. But it's just a virtual reality, virtual roof turret, if you will. And then the pressure gauge is just up above it. But this is going to be where we'll spend a bit of time. The details to this would be if there's an active fault, this triangle will be red, and it's probably going to be in that screen what's wrong. If it's not, I can hit the soft button below, it's not a touch screen. I can hit the soft button below it, and then it would tell me on the screen what my problem is. Then I can decide from that, do I call Hughes, do I call shop guys, and then I'll run them through all of that process. This icon here doesn't mean anything except when it's grayed out, life is good. When it's amber or yellow, that means that I've either used my dry chemical or I've used my foam and I need to clean out or blow down or flush the system. Depending on what I used, this is going to drive me through the operation of that. What we'll see is that the computer controls this. So when I operate a switch, tells the computer, yep, I flushed it, good. It has no idea if I did that or not. It just had received an input from the switch to clear it. So we're still responsible as operators to flush the system completely or blow down the system completely. The truck won't know what we did. It just knows we operated the switches. So this is probably what we're going to spend a lot of, if we spend a lot of time anywhere, that's where it's going to be. Just down from there, your joystick configuration, roof turret, bumper turret, and this truck does have the Saigon CTIS system, similar to your other system, just kind of an updated or the next version, newer version of it, if you will. But then these control switches here for your turrets. When we talk about this, we're going to use some new terms now. We're going to use deploy and stow. Right now you have a 3-position switch on the Legacy that allows you to be off, then on, or oscillate. Now we're only going to be able to deploy it or stow it. We never shut it off. And then we can select oscillation and we can select light. That's how that works. Your low attack on the bumper turret, one switch, low or up. We're not, we don't have that configuration that we've had before. Your joysticks are going to be exact, except you'll notice your bumper turret has your auxiliary agent for your hydrochem. Hydrochem technology is off the bumper turret. We don't have any hydrochem or auxiliary agent for the roof. The radio system, we've talked a little bit, just a sidebar, if you will. We've got any number of operations. What you'll find, this console is completely pre-drilled. It won't be, they won't all be tapped. The holes won't be tapped for the attaching hardware, but they are pre-drilled. So this would be like little slide tiles when we were kids, move everything around. I can put any of this wherever it wants to be. So I can change the configuration, radios can go here, or I can lower everything, put the radios on the top, whatever I want to do. Because then this center console is pre-wired for 12 volt. Operators will, radios can be installed there, but you can manipulate that console however you want to. You'll just have to we'll have to tap the new holes if you want to reposition it, but you have a opportunity to get that whatever you want it to look like. Match your other truck, or that's what a lot of people, if they've got a Legacy, that's what they like to do. They want these joysticks, roof and bumper, they want them to match what they've got in their current configuration, if you will. So that was the cab. So if we're walking up to the truck, just like in a CDL test, when you're walking up to your vehicle, you're beginning your vehicle inspection, because I'm looking underneath the truck. This is rainwater. But anyway, if I'm looking underneath the truck, if I start seeing, red in the middle, and if I see green in the back and water in the front, well, that tells me I've got a hydraulic leak, a coolant leak, and one of my ball valves is leaking. So I'm already telling what the day is going to be like, but I'm making that inspection as I'm walking up to the truck. And then that's what this next section's about. In that operator manual has all of we'll talk about it in a minute. As we're walking in, it's nothing different than you've already doing. What I'm going to do is take you through where the fluid level checks are. So we're going to get in, this is your roll-up door in the back. And so once we get up inside there, for instance, I can look to my left and then I'll see this filter configuration, and this steering reservoir has a sight glass on it. So now I've gone in that compartment and I've just looked to the left. Now I'll look straight ahead, I think, at this next one. No, I'm still looking to the left. Because there's a manual override that between this wall and this reservoir, I put my hand back there, there's a manual override for the water pump. So in case the switch in the cab didn't work, I have that capability. And these are all my fluid level checks. Coolant at the top, engine oil, disregard that, not engine oil. Transmission, power divider, reservoir, we talked about steering reservoir, def, but the gauges in the cab. Before I get up inside this compartment, I have that engine disable switch. Much like your Legacy Striker had the engine disable switch, right rear compartment, roll up door, power distribution. There's a big toggle switch on the side that prevented the engine from cranking. We have that same switch, but it's over to the right side here a little bit. Okay, that's got that side. So this is the left side. I think this next one will show me the right side of the truck. Yeah, so now I've walked around the truck. I've taken the battery box off just to show you what the battery cable looks like. But foot stomp, there's your engine oil dipstick. So the engine oil is going to be on the right side. Trans and power divider were on the left. This is now, engine is over here. And this is going to tell us what else we have. So we've got not only the, so we've got battery configuration. We do have a master disconnect switch, long-term storage. It's not part of your daily routine. Now, you know, oftentimes I hear master and then everybody, well, what I have to do first every day? No, that's long-term storage.
Question. Does
Please.
it had a warning that if you disable it, it could mess up some systems?
No.
Is that the case if someone turns it off?
The switch on the other side?
That master disconnect?
Oh, no, it just doesn't, there's just nothing. As soon as you get in the truck, you'll know right away something's wrong because you won't have anything because it disconnects the battery from the truck's electrical circuit.
Yeah.
But it's,
Once it's turned back on, are there any problems with
No.
computers? Or?
nope. I'm glad you mentioned that because on the diamond plate cover, there's a placard on it. And that diamond plate panel or the placard says don't shut it off within 10 minutes of shutting the engine down.
Okay.
That's your only, you know, knock on wood thing you have to remember about that. And what the reason why that is, and if you remember, so Joe, if you remember that yesterday, or if you guys have started this, as soon as you shut it down, there's a bunch of stuff going on in the engine compartment. That DEF pump is drawing all the DEF fluid out of the SCR, putting it back in the reservoir. The centrifuge of the engine is slowing down. So they ask us to give it 10 minutes before you'd ever run back here and shut this off. I don't know that we'll shut the truck off and run as fast as we can to come back here and shut this off. I don't know what that would ever look like, but don't do that. Give it 10 minutes. If you've got to do some reason have to shut that off, at least allow 10 minutes to allow that engine controller to have done its job and wrote what we just did and finish all of its shutdown. So that's the only detail or stipulation to the shut-off switch. No, but good. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a good question.
Master for like maintenance.
Right, exactly right. And it's a lockout, tag out.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. Yes, it's a lockout, tag out configuration. And there's a voltmeter that tells me the voltage, and then I've got jump start lugs that are back in this corner here. You'll see red and black lugs back there. Voltage on the truck is, foot stomp, 24 volts. It's a 24 volt start, 24 volt run vehicle. The 12 volts, this yellow circuit here, just for your FYI for today, that yellow circuit runs directly to the center console only for flashlight charging, radios, video, anything at center console. Everything else on the truck is 24 volts. And you may have DC or AC voltage 110 off the generator, and we'll talk about that just a little bit. But so that should take care of all the fluid levels. except for the windshield washer and the hydraulics for the low attack, and those are in the bumper. There's 2 removable lids in the bumper that those 2 reservoirs will be located at. So when we walked across from checking the engine oils and we walked around the back to look at the batteries, these were your shoreline and the ladder. So there's our shoreline connections there, and then we do have air drains on the left side of the truck. Somebody asked me where they were one time. I put this page in, and it answered that question. I don't know that it fits this, but anyway, that's where air drains are. So let's see, we're gonna. I think I got a little bit. This was my off the beaten path, so I used this side of the truck because now we're going to talk about the pumping system side. I'm using all my instructor techniques. So when we look at the pumping system, it's just a basic design, but what I want you to kind of see, pump, we use old school pilot operated relief valve, and it's the same one on the T-Series, same part number. That hadn't changed in 100 years. But anyway, we have that, so if we look at this schematic and go back, I mean, this is our pump compartment, suction inlet, outlet piping, and then just behind there is where that relief valve is located, and then that is your pilot control. So all that little box says, or that placard has always said relief valve, it's actually the pilot valve. It's the pilot that controls that relief valve. And when we talk about the pilot operated relief valve, this member has that on and off. Anytime it's on, it's allowing the water to be sensed by the spring and holding the relief valve closed until I overcome the spring tension, opens it up, then the red disappears and the blue forces the relief valve open, and they've worked the same way forever. Just remember, just a foot stop, remember that's only going to give us about 20 to 40 PSI. I can't be at crash mode and turn that down to 100 PSI. I can't do it. Once it gets down to about 180, the truck starts jumping up and down and cavitating, and bad things happen. So just remember that this is, the engineers have designed to where we're going to be right about 280 to 300, and then this allows me to kind of control that in between there, but it's only going to give me 20 to 40 PSI. And then that strainer, just remember the strainer right here for daily checkout, or weekly, maybe monthly, depending on the quality of the water. When you shut that off, this is a troubleshooting step. If you were to call me next week and say, Hubble, my roof turret won't shoot from here to that pickup truck out there. I should be pumping 190 feet at least. If I'm not getting any distance out of it, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is go back out to the truck, turn the pilot valve off. So I'm going to bypass all this sensing, and I'm going to send the pressure to both sides of that relief valve, holding it closed. That should be putting out over 300 PSI. I better get all that distance. If I do that and I still don't get distance, then I want you to tell me what your pressure is. If it's 300 with no distance, we may have a clog in the system. If you look down and your gauge is wavering, then maybe we have a bigger problem. But that's our first step of troubleshooting. kind of walking around a little bit. Although this is the maintenance facility at Lewiston, Idaho, it's still the same top of the truck. So I kind of used a little bit of it. It's just, I didn't take this picture yesterday, but it's same roof turret with a video on it, dry chem setup, warning lights. Then you look at the back of the truck, winterization system. This reservoir here is your hydraulics for the roof turret. I'm sorry, hydraulics for the generator, hydraulic generator. I don't know where that came from, sorry. Just delete that. So your turret configuration, 375, 750. We have the hydrochem technology now on the bumper turret. We do have the low attack option. Windshield washer fluid is here. Turret hydraulics is here. You have low attack on your Legacy? Yeah. Okay, completely different system. This truck only needs the ignition switch on and it would work. Because the hydraulics for the new truck, for the Global, are all underneath here. I've got a pump, I have a reservoir, a pump, and a filter all in the front. I just have to have the ignition on to be able to operate it. On your truck, on your Legacy, it's an engine-driven pump. Engine has to be running, and a hydraulic, yeah, it's a completely different system. So this is kind of a standalone type system. We talked a little bit, these, I can see my windshield deluge nozzles, lighting configuration steps, kind of a cool picture. And in the joystick configuration, we'll look at all that. These are return to center joysticks. So move it, moves, let go, it comes. The joystick will return to center, but the turret will stay where it was supposed to be. It's not a point and shoot, it's a return to center type joystick system. This is the left side of the truck, so we've got our pump configuration here. And again, this is the outlet. So the water comes through, is going to go right behind here, and that's where it divides off from my water or from my bumper turret, roof turret, ball valves, or underneath on this side, the other side. This is going to be my outlet for my cross lays. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. And I have a dual agent hose reel for both water, water foam, and dry chemical. So that's pretty much all your discharge. We don't run any side discharges, manual controlled. This item right here is a foam transfer pump, pneumatically operated, allows me to fill the foam tank or empty the foam tank. Water fills here, 2 options, has to go through the same ball valve to fill the tank. It just gives us different options, if you will. And then this would be the manual override for our multi-metering manifold, same foam system as your Legacy has. On the right side of the truck, nitrogen for dry chemical. This is the hydraulic generator. In your Legacy, this head is in the cab, or we just run it outside on this one. Pretty much same operations. Get another view of your cross lays from the right side of the truck. And this is one of the heaters from the winterization system. So we've got a booster heater system, and then we run heated coolant through these heater boxes. We have one on the left, one on the right side. Let's see. And this is a kind of a detail of the cross lays. Your Legacy striker for your pre-connect, you remember that everything was set up, and that last thing that happened when you deploy the line is that little lanyard would pull the pin and allow the switch to enable that system. Now we have that switch up at the top on these elbows. So as you deploy the line, that last little bit of hose, when you pull this elbow, is going to activate the switch to enable your cross lays. These stuff, turn them on, this just enables them. The same purpose as that pull pin was. The safety that prevents you from charging them when they're in that compartment. We'll go through that operation. Multi-metering manifold, 12 station, 8 station, same operating characteristics, same this manual override. In case that doesn't work, you do have a capability to get foam still, as long as the main foam valve operates. Dry chemical, okay, this is not your truck. But so dry chem system, when you go up and look at on the top of it, same rule applies. Vent, check the gauge, and slowly open the lid, and there's a whistle port on the lid. Just make sure there's no pressure in there before you take the lid off. That's what you're trying to do. Gauge, vent valve, and then there's a little drilled orifice on the lid. It's kind of an assembly picture of the dry chem system, a little bit different. Remember on the Legacy we had all the ball valves were horizontally mounted. We kind of redo the configuration a little bit, but that's your dry chemical system. The only time you'll ever see it, I hope. Because if you're looking at it, that means things are apart. So that
fill tube goes straight down versus
yes.
the Legacy.
I'm sorry. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes. Still in the review of the truck. This is where I was speaking to earlier. So all of these are in the operator manual. In the back of that operator's manual will give us like 12 pages of different inspections that we can write our new SOPs off of or look at those to compare. Many will be the same as what you're doing today. Probably more to just tell you we're using a lot of the synthetic oils now. Most of the systems all use the same type of oil. And they were wrong, so I just took the screen out. I probably need to just delete this screen. Your truck, on the first pages of the operator manual will be all the specifications for the 4x4, 6x6, 8x8. Yeah, we can probably just disregard that page. And then the one we've been waiting on. Oh, not too bad. That's just about what it should take, about an hour, and we're good to go. But that's your truck, guys. That's everything about your truck. What we'll do now is go out and just redo the same thing. We'll walk around the truck, look in all the compartments, again, validate what we just saw, and then go shoot some water. So any questions on that as far as the what I hope is we found a little bit of information from the Legacy, found a little bit of the T-Series, so maybe the configuration is going to be a bit different, but everything, it should be very similar. There should not be anything that, I'm thinking, yeah, our screen's a little different, updated maybe, but other than that, there's going to be the same operating characteristics as what you've had before. Are there any questions before we go outside? Anything that you'd like to relook at? So what we were able to do, Joe, this morning is, let's see, what were we able to do? Let's end the show. So we started out with the airport product support site. Okay. Got through that okay. And then
you were able to get online?
Yes, sir, perfectly. Yes, worked perfect. Then this was the page we discussed. This is that chassis. Everything we're going to do today, you'll be able to go back to this and say, yep, I know what you're talking about. So now the rotary switch for differentials, 1 click locks the transfer case, so I get front and rear. 2 clicks gives me front and rear and side to side. Now, and we said how stuck I am. That's what I need to determine. If I'm stuck, how stuck am I? Possibly I've only driven off the front, got off the flight line into the mud. The back is still on the flight line. So all I'm required to do is 1 click will lock the transfer case, locking front and rear. The rear is on pavement. The front's still in the mud, but it doesn't matter because I just lock them two together, and then all I have to do is put it in reverse and I walk right back out. Now, if I get all 4 off the flight line, yeah, maybe I need everything I got. So I would lock 1 transfer case, 2 differential. So now I've got front and back and side to side. I might discharge the water away from the truck. Don't drain it where you are because now you're really stuck. But discharge all that water, put it in low, drive forward, put it in R, drive backwards, and you should come right out. Then you've also got CTIS. You'll have to remind me you have CTIS system, because I think this is the first global I've done with CTIS. I've done CTIS, but I've got to remember to say that. So you've got if all else fails, I do have CTIS to get that wider footprint. But probably I've gotten myself out just by determining which way I need to use my transfer case or lock or differential lock thing.
So with our Legacy, is it, when we put in that inner axle, is it just 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive?
It's all-wheel drive. You got all of them going. And then you lock up with the twin disc setup. Remember we talked about on the twin disc, it takes the transmission and transfer case and kind of puts them all in one big box right in the middle of the truck. So you lock that output that goes, there's actually a differential there that you lock up also. So that gives you your front and back. And then you get your wheel to wheel. Oh, good question. Yes, sir.
You mentioned about the Legacy and the new one being set up similar. The turret joysticks were reversed. I didn't know if there was a reasoning behind that or just...
No, it's just what they've done. There's no, I don't Probably they're keeping roof turret there simply because that's where the snozzle is. So I think they've just kept that. That's, no, you know what, let me say the same thing, but let me go backwards with that. No, we'll just keep that the way it is. That's usually where the roof turret is on that left side. What I was going to say was snozzle was on the right, but that's not necessarily true either. It's depending on whatever your main turret is, we change that to where it's on your right. It's the one on the left, closer to the driver. So if it is different from your legacy, we can swap. That's easy. I mean, easy peasy. We don't have the Allen wrench that fits that, but we'll get it. It's metric. That's the foot stomp. With the camera, I will not use my crescent wrench and we won't be using the crescent wrench with the camera. So, but we got to the site. We were able to do this, and then we obviously got the PowerPoint. So it was really neat. We've had a successful morning. So, are we still going? Cool. Okay. So one other thing that's here, and again, we'll take whatever files off this thumb drive you want. So for dry chemical, just in case nobody has had a chance to see PowerPoint, to see dual agent, man, what am I saying? It's obviously coffee time. If none of you have seen HydroChem technology, I apologize for that. Here's what HydroChem technology looks like. So when you look at low flow water or water and foam, that's what low flow water and foam looks like. High flow, we just know we've got an increased distance. When we do our checks, we should be getting about 190 feet. On a 1500, it's 190 feet. On a 3000, it should be 220. But we should be getting 190 feet. Yeah, we're pretty well, we know what that's all about. Well, for dry chemical, without, this is a non-windy day in Illinois. That doesn't ever happen. But so you can see your distance, maybe 50 feet, 40 feet of effective distance with the powder. You get any crosswind, you have no effective distance because it's done. So what we're able to do with HydroChem technology, the whole idea is when you're going to, if the firefight says, yep, that's what we want, the first thing we'll do is go into select our liquid mode, whether it's water and foam, whatever we're going to do, get that going, then open it up and then shrink it back down to about an 8 to 10 inch cone, if you will, and then hit your dry chemical and open the discharge. And now we've got this water foam stream carrying the powder that same 160 to 180 feet, and we're getting the knockdown of the powder and the cooling of the water foam. So that right there is what HydroChem gives you. Now the hand line has it too. It's not near as impressive. Plus, when you get the rookie on the on the line, that's why I'm a mechanic. Yes, I don't know. Anyway, so you have the same capabilities with the water foam. Oh, man. That's what HydroChem's all about. That's what HydroChem technology gets you. So that's kind of just that right there. Just kind of speaks for itself. The capabilities of what that I think the buzzword is encapsulates. I think that's the word that they use, that the stream. So as an operator, what do I want to make sure? This won't do it. It'd be pretty, but it won't be very effective because it's still just going to be a powder plume about that distance. That's all it's going to do. Also, I don't want to bring that all the way down to a straight stream where the pattern crosses at about 4 feet, because then the powder would come out and it looked like a howitzer. It'd just go out and then out the sides because it would hit that conversion and wouldn't be allowed to flow through. So you need to create that tube, if you will, and then it just encapsulates it out. So, okay, enough of that. So with that, we'll grab a coffee or a water or whatever. We'll go to the truck and do a actual walk around and flow some water.